This is Southern Cross Nightly News. First at 6 with Kaye Wilkinson.
Tonight, the teachers' pay dispute heats up again. The Port Arthur Management Authority under a cloud. And Tiger fails to growl at the US Open. Good evening. The Australian Education Union will meet with teachers around the state next week, urging them to reject the state government's offer of a 12% pay increase phased in over 2 years. Instead, they'll be asking members to choose between arbitration and industrial action.
The union claims the state government had the opportunity to bring an end to the 16-month-old dispute and give teachers a 12% pay increase next July, as recommended by the Industrial Relations Commission.
We will agree to the 12%, but if it's phased in over 2 financial years, we certainly can't pay $28 million in the August budget.
But the Premier's refusal to pass it on in one hit has angered the AEU. School will now resume next week with industrial action looming.
It's very regrettable that the government has not chosen to use the opportunity presented by the Commission. They've been crying out for a year or more for the Commission to sort out this matter, for the independent umpire to take control of it. The independent umpire has made a recommendation and now they won't accept it.
As well as recommending industrial action, the union has banned the involvement of teachers in the implementation of the Premier's directions for education statement.
That would be regrettable because the losers there are Tasmanian students.
Penny Cocker says Tasmanian teachers are once again being asked to prop up the state budget, and she'll be urging them not to give in.
There's no way that we're going to give in and concede that we, teachers in Tasmania, are inferior to non-government teachers in Tasmania or all our mainland colleagues.
The state government has asked Special Commissioner Max Doyle to expedite his report on Port Arthur and is hopeful it will be available within a week. Meanwhile, staff at Port Arthur are calling for an administrator to be appointed to steer the historic site into the future. They met last night to discuss the problems plaguing the site since the April 28th massacre.
55 employees gave unanimous support at the union meeting to replacing the Port Arthur Historic Site Management Authority with an administrator for the next 3 years. As well, they want staffing conditions maintained to ensure future stability.
What we're focusing on is the future and putting forward something that's positive for the future of the site.
They say their proposal isn't intended as criticism of the board, rather a way to end the present crisis. Yesterday, Authority Chairman Michael Mazengarb resigned, and even some board members believe their time is near.
I think the decision-making environment of the board, who have been through this trauma as well as the staff, as well as the community, needs to change. And the staff are saying, well, a good way to do that is to bring someone in independent who can set up the environment and the long-term future of the site.
And they've renewed calls for the government to cover the site's financial liabilities. Tourism Minister Ray Groom says it's likely the government will cover costs, which include an $800,000 compensation bill.
The State Health Minister has foreshadowed further job cuts in the upcoming state budget. Peter Mackay says because of federal budget cuts, there will have to be some belt-tightening in the health and community services sector.
Health Minister Peter Mackay has been arguing with the Commonwealth ever since the federal budget cuts were announced. And in the lead-up to the August state budget, he's predicting there's more hard times ahead for health and community services.
All up, it's going to be tight. I think there is no reason to believe that there's fairies at the bottom of the garden who are going to deliver us heaps of money.
And he says there'll be further job cuts.
What we must do is to continuously try and find more efficient ways to deliver our services, the utilisation of the non-government sector to provide service in our community services section, the reduction of our management in the overall health area.
We've got a jobs crisis in Tasmania. The last thing we need is federal and state governments continuing to cut jobs. Really, the state government needs to admit that they've got it wrong and look at a budget which will expand employment in Tasmania rather than cutting further.
Mr Mackay is not the only minister upset with the Commonwealth. Education Minister Sue Napier says the introduction of an enrolment benchmark adjustment scheme and the abolition of the new schools policy is already having an effect on the cost of education. Mr Mackay says the Commonwealth is making things increasingly difficult, but according to the ALP, that's no excuse.
People will not forget that the state government cut 1,000 jobs out of the Tasmanian public sector over the last year. We've had 5 budgets from Mr Rundle, all cutting. Now they're trying to blame the federal government. It won't wash.
Meantime, former HEC chairman Senator Brian Gibson has bought into the partial sale of the hydro debate, saying it must go ahead if Tasmania wants to be competitive.
In a few years' time, Victoria is going to start lowering their taxes, and it's going to be very hard to compete. We should start now, and the only way of doing that urgently is to sell off part of the hydro.
Calls today for a drastic rethink of Tasmania's tourism pitch after figures released this afternoon show a 4% decline in room occupancy rates during the March quarter. The opposition says Tasmanians need a new marketing tool to attract interstate visitors.
The room occupancy rate for hotels, motels and guest houses in Tasmania for the March quarter dropped to 62.9%, down 4.2% on the same time last year. Room nights occupied dropped almost 6% in the same time, from 337,200 in 1996 to 317,500 this year. Despite the downturn, the number of rooms available increased by 1.6%, but the state opposition says it's pointless having more rooms but no guests.
It's not just the government's problem, it's all our problem. We need to do something drastic, and I call upon the Minister and the Premier to start listening to Bob Clifford. We have to grab that in cap, and we have to make a big bang on the mainland.
Michael Polly says when Tasmania was the only state to have a casino, people came in droves because of our novelty value.
We really have to do something out of the ordinary now to try and get our market share back.
Also today, the opposition called on the state government to seek a federal guarantee that separate private ownerships of the Launceston and Hobart airports will be pursued.
Further warnings today that hundreds of Tasmanian textile jobs could be lost if cuts to tariff protection are accelerated. Devonport's Australian Weaving Mills factory among those nervously waiting for a report into the textile, clothing and footwear industries due out at the end of this month.
Australian Weaving Mills Devonport factory is Australia's largest towel manufacturer. Yet it's been a rocky road to its position of strength, which the company hopes won't be undermined by big tariff cuts.
It will clearly put at risk the whole viability of our business.
He says the industry is going along with the reduction of tariffs through to the year 2000, but then wants protection frozen for the next 5 years at that level. Hundreds of Tasmanian jobs and thousands nationally hinge on the Industry Commission's forthcoming report into the textile, clothing and footwear industries.
We'd like to think that there is a degree of pragmatism that recognises also that further accelerated reduction is going to come at a cost in terms of reduced jobs.
We don't want to see any employment opportunities lost in this state, and if the tariff barriers are lowered, then there is a real chance that we will lose jobs in factories like this at Australian Weaving Mills.
Australian Weaving Mills has just spent $750,000 on a new warehouse and today showed off its range of Sydney 2000 towels, a contract worth well over $10 million.
We were up against a degree of stiff competition. We pitched hard and we were successful, so we're very pleased about it and we're looking forward to 3 years of good production.
Ahead on Southern Cross Nightly News, Princess Diana pushes her anti-landmine cause and a lucky escape for a northern log truck driver.
It's the outrageous comedy to die for. Goldie Hawn.
I have a hole in my stomach.
Bruce Willis. And Meryl Streep.
I will not speak to you till you put your head on straight.
Death becomes her 8:30 Saturday.
Montage's once a year stock take sale is on now. Discounts on all tiles, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 and 70% discount. That's right, up to 70% discount at Montage now. Don't you miss out.
Wake up! 40-week stock take sale is on right now. Save up to 10, 20, 30, 40%, even up to 50%. But don't sleep on it. It's only while stocks last.
40 weeks, everything that's good in bed.
You wanted an encore. You got it. More of the music. More of the memories. Peterborough returns with Forever Diamond. The ultimate tribute. Relive the excitement. The energy. The romance. 2 hours of pure magic as Peterborough brings you some of the greatest music ever written.
Appearing Burnie Civic Centre, Country Club Casino. Book now at the venues. The unmistakable sound of Willie Nelson, his greatest hits.
On the road again.
38 timeless classics on 2 CDs for only $29.95.
Nothing but blue skies from now on.
The very best from a musical genius, Willie Nelson.
I've enjoyed performing these songs for you over the years. Now they're all here on this album.
Willie Nelson, 38 greatest hits, a lifetime of amazing songs.
Saturday, West Park.
A lucky escape this afternoon for a northern log truck driver after his truck overturned on a back road between Launceston and Scottsdale. The accident happened about midday behind the township of Targa, 30 kilometres northeast of Launceston. During wet conditions, ambulance rescue crews worked to free the man who had become trapped when the truck fell on its side, spilling its load. An ambulance spokesman said that despite being trapped for more than an hour, the man suffered only minor back injuries. He was taken to the Launceston General Hospital for observation. An inquest into the death of 10-year-old Angelique Kohlenbecker, killed last year after she was struck by a car on Hobblers Bridge Road in Launceston, has found no evidence of negligence. But Angelie's father, Peter Kohlenbecker, remains unsatisfied, blaming the Launceston City Council for not providing a pedestrian crossing on the busy road.
Angelique Kohlenbecker was struck by a car on the 22nd of April last year, a short distance from her Launceston home. She died in hospital 10 days later. Coroner Tim Hill handed down his report into her death this morning, finding neither the driver of the car nor the council at fault. Mr. Hill found there was no evidence the driver of the car had been speeding and said Hobblers Bridge Road posed no unusual hazards for pedestrians. Peter Kohlenbecker disagrees. He blames the Launceston City Council for his daughter's death. Since 1993, he's been campaigning for safer conditions on the hazardous road, but his concerns were never met.
About 14 months ago, they spent about $250,000 on the intersection. They planted plaster stones, they planted a few trees. I think pipes were relayed, but none of the safety aspects of the intersections was considered in any shape or form.
Since Angelie's death, some of those safety hazards have been improved, but all too late for the Kohlenbecker family.
I wish they would have listened to, when I sent the submission to them. They would have taken me a bit more serious at the time,
Meanwhile, an Aboriginal protester charged with trespass appeared in Launceston Magistrates Court this morning. Gary Maynard was involved in a political protest which took place at the Tasmanian Aboriginal Centre on the 23rd of September last year, when a dissident group aired their grievances with centre manager Michael Mansell. Magistrate Peter Wilson found Maynard guilty of trespass, but due to his clear record, no penalty was imposed. A further 9 members of the protest group face similar charges.
A new scheme has been launched aimed at preventing people with mental illnesses and drug problems from becoming homeless. It's an 18-month pilot program and will involve targeting people living in boarding houses and hostels, often the last step before becoming homeless. Today, Health and Community Services Minister Peter McKay handed over a $65,000 cheque, which will be used to fund the scheme. Australian Greens leader Senator Bob Brown has been arrested during a logging protest at Gullengook Forest in Gippsland. Senator Brown, now free on bail, says he's proud he was arrested.
30 police swooped on Gullengook Forest near Orbost around 6 o'clock this morning. One of the first headed for the police van, Australian Greens leader Senator Bob Brown. Senator Brown was one of 15 protesters arrested in the raid. They were taken to Orbost Police Station and charged with hindering a logging operation. The Greens leader is no stranger to handcuffs and police stations. He was arrested 3 years ago in Tasmania's Tarkine Forest. Environmentalists stepped up their campaign against the felling of trees at Gullengook this week, locking themselves to machinery and building 15-metre high platforms. So far, 52 protesters have been arrested. Blockades are expected to continue in the forest next week. Senator Brown has been released on bail and will appear in court next Thursday.
A squad of Queensland riot police has flown to Cairns to bolster security for Pauline Hanson's next public rally tomorrow night. The controversial MP is now being protected around the clock. following renewed threats on her personal safety.
Police from the Public Safety Response Team departed from Brisbane today to boost security at Pauline Hanson's rally in Cairns tomorrow night. Armed with riot shields, batons and tear gas, they're prepared for the worst, even though local police are attempting to play down security fears.
In southern states there has been violence at these incidents. We don't expect that violence in North Queensland.
Scores of police will secure the Cairns showgrounds where 1,000 Hanson supporters are to hear the One Nation Party leader. After Wednesday night's wild scenes in Adelaide, Queensland and federal police aren't taking any chances. Extra federal police have been assigned to guard the Hanson electoral office and her family around the clock following new death threats. Now the high cost of protecting the MP has come under fire.
I would have put the campaign, the war against crime, as a much more important priority than protecting this woman in her self-indulgence.
Also today, one of the strongest attacks yet on Pauline Hanson from the Deputy Prime Minister.
It is an absolutely dumb and divisive agenda by Pauline Hanson to tear up our bread ticket for the 21st century. And we will torch her agenda because it is jeopardising our trade, and as Minister for Trade I'm going to fight it all the way.
Federal Attorney General Darryl Williams is refusing to discuss Pauline Hanson's security arrangements and the costs involved. He says that's long-standing policy for all politicians.
The Princess of Wales has again criticised countries which allow the export of landmines. Diana has made the issue a personal crusade, renewing her call for a worldwide ban.
The Princess is widely credited with speeding up the British ban on landmine trade. A Conservative minister labelled her a loose cannon during her visit to Angola. This time, her comments to an anti-landmine conference had the full approval of the new Labor government.
I am not a political figure, and as I said at the time, and I'd like to reiterate now, my interests are humanitarian.
Diana spoke of her visit to Angola, where there are an estimated 15 million landmines. Her memory of victims has strengthened her resolve to bring about a worldwide ban.
Angola has the highest rate of amputees in the world. How can countries which manufacture and trade in these weapons square their conscience with such human devastation?
Warmly applauded by the crowd, campaigners say Diana's commitment has added much-needed momentum to their cause.
Up to that, I think the mine movement has got many supporters, many helpers, but no really charismatic leader, and that is what the Princess did.
Diana will take her crusade to Washington next week, attending a gala dinner to raise money for landmine victims.
Sport next with Rob Fairs, and Rob, the Hobart Football Club, not very happy.
You can say that again, Kay. The club lashes out. We'll have all the details after the break. And Colin Montgomery leads the US Open.
Sunday night on Southern Cross, the television premiere of the Oscar-winning Aussie comedy that blitzed the world. Terence Stamp, Hugo Weaving and Guy Pearce. The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, 8:30 Sunday.
The savings continue at Harris Scarf with Saucony Lady Classic Trainers $39.95, Saucony Grit Azure and Helix Sport Shoes $59.95. Here's value: warm and attractive 3/4 length coats by Sophia $119, and Sanro rain jackets are a low $69.95. Harris Scarf have more great jackets from manoeuvres, vibes and traffic. And Harris Scarf have great things in store for kids.
Harris Scarf, your value for money store.
Like it? Charge it at Harris Scarf.
So you think you can't afford a mattress? Well, think again. We have quality inner spring mattresses from only $109 and Manchester packages from only $299. You can afford a mattress right now at The Bedroom.
Ballinger's weekly specials: Heritage shortbread biscuits $1, Sultana cake $2.75, cracker biscuits $1, Disney character glasses $2, cream biscuits $1, and wafer biscuits 2 for $3. Ballinger's Variety, open 7 days a week.
When you need to rent a car.
If it's budget, you'll go far.
But what if you want to buy a car?
Budget.
If you need a car, you need to get down to Budget Car Sales and check out the huge savings. All vehicles must clear by the end of June. Prices drastically reduced. Make us a genuine offer and let's talk. You won't buy better and you won't buy for less. Phone Budget today. 13 27 27.
Budget Cars and Trucks are best budget.
Tonight's sport is brought to you by person-to-person loans from Island State Credit Union.
putting the person back into personal loans.
Good evening, everyone. Tiger Woods' quest for golf's holy grail, 4 majors in a year, has suffered a setback at the US Open. He's 9 shots behind leader Colin Montgomery at the Congressional Country Club. The best of the Aussies is Craig Parry at even par, Greg Norman 5 shots further back.
After his devastating Masters win, all eyes were on Tiger Woods as he took aim at the second leg of the Grand Slam.
Wow, fantastic golf shot.
But despite some brilliant shot-making early and birdie putts to match, the world's hottest player lost his momentum on the back 9. His hopes of rewriting yet another page in the history books dampened at the 18th, but not extinguished.
Every person who's probably won a US Open has made some bogeys, if not a double or triple.
His 4 over par round 74, leaving him trailing leader Colin Montgomery by 9 strokes. The burly Scot, fresh from a last start victory in Europe, bubbling with confidence.
I got fortunate that I was hitting my own shots exactly the right distance today.
Montgomery's play on the demanding layout drawing praise from none other than the Shark, who himself struggled to come to terms with Congressional's deep rough and lightning greens. This birdie putt at the 17th, a rare bright spot.
He's keeping the ball underneath the hole, obviously, to be 5 or 6 under, so very impressive.
Plenty of bright spots, though, for the man once described as the next Nicholas. Precision iron play helping Hal Sutton to carve out a 66 to be 1 off the pace. Not to be outshone, though, another 80s star Tom Watson, this chip-in sending the huge gallery into a frenzy. As did this uninvited greenside guest, who looked on as Lauren Roberts sunk a snake of his own.
The boss of the moss. Moss again, and that's why.
Great putt. North Launceston faces a must-win battle when it tackles Sandy Bay at York Park tomorrow. The injury-ridden Robins are looking to end a two-game losing streak and keep in touch with the top 5. North Launceston has plenty to be concerned about heading into tomorrow's crucial match. Not only must it respond to last week's defeat by North Hobart, but also cope with a growing injury list to its star players, Jason Gibson amongst them.
We've just got to overcome that. It's sort of just up to the players who are there at the moment who get their opportunities to perform.
Sandy Bay may never have a closer opportunity to beat the Robins, and officials are confident of success.
If we can get a win this week, and we've got the bye next week to freshen up, and then start the second half of the year on a high, I think we can expect a lot better things from the second half of the season.
But at York Park, the Robins are always tough opposition, whatever the odds. And coach Wes Lewis is confident his side will return to the winners list to stay in touch with the 5.
We have to win. There's no sort of buts about it. We just have to win, and it's a sort of do or die for us. If we've got any aspirations of playing in finals, then we have to win.
The Seagulls must also deliver to shake its pushover tag, a label that's becoming all too familiar. Meanwhile, Hobart Football Club President Noel Gray has called for a fair go from the TFL Commission and the media for his embattled club. The Tigers are upset at what they believe is a lack of support from the football community as his club tries to return to its glory days.
After one of the most traumatic weeks in the 53-year history of the Hobart Football Club, the Tigers are biting back. President Noel Gray issued a 4-page statement heavily criticising the way the club has been treated since its record loss to Burnie.
The punishment that we received as a result of last week's game against the Burnie Dockers was punishment enough without the media particularly, then, as we say, sinking the boot in.
In particular, the Hobart president is angry at Burnie Football Club President Terry Lamprey for bluntly telling the Tigers to get out of the league. He's also outraged at media reports about his club.
Well, it seems to me pretty obvious that the media have not yet been able to obtain the facts. Failing that, they have not asked the football club particularly for the facts. And I might add that we are scathing in the press, particularly the print media.
The Hobart boss also alleged that the TFL was $27,000 behind budget this year and says the League Commission has failed to support the Tigers. Claims rejected by TFL General Manager Roger Hampson today.
It's rather disappointing that Mr Gray has made a number of statements that he himself hasn't based them on fact.
On the field, the young Tigers face another tough assignment, this time against the informed Port Power.
Paul Rifle has the inside running for the job as Australia's third pace bowler in next week's second Ashes test at Lords. In his first match since arriving in England this week to replace Andy Bickle, Rifle took 3 for 15 overnight in Nottinghamshire's first innings total of 239.
As Paul Rifle strapped himself in for the tour, Andy Bickle took a backseat on his way home after an injury-riddled month.
It is disappointing, but like I said, if I can get a positive out of this, go home and get fit and get out there and be nice and positive next season for Queensland and hopefully for Australia.
After Glenn McGrath left the early impressions, Rifle launched his tour claiming a wicket with his 12th ball, while sometimes wayward Brendan Julian took 2 and Michael Kasmovich 1. Bowling just 2 5-over spells, Rifle showed few signs of the rest he's had since the South African tour. His figures, 3 for 15. In his best haul for the trip, McGrath claimed 4 wickets, although his fingers weren't restricted to just working the seam. Overall, a pleasing and joke-filled day for the Australians, showing signs they are reversing their first test fortunes. Nottinghamshire all out 239. But disappointment for Michael Slater in his opening first-class innings for the tour, out for 14. Australia 1 for 51 at stumps.
And Kaye, that's just about it for sport, but just before we go, we've got a little gift here from all the crew here at Southern Cross. I'm sure you can see them. So we might just leave them there, but all the best in your new role in our Hobart office. And
Thank you very
all the
much.
best to you.
It's lovely.
Well.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay. And I think now I should pass over to Peter for the weather.
This week, the Kent success story.
Part of my success has been the quality of the people that have been around me in business. It's just not a one-man band.
Tasmania in Focus, Sunday, first at 6.
Excuse me? I'm on my way to Fiji.
Fiji? I wouldn't have come this way.
Oh, no, it's my credit card. I have to pay it off before I leave. But you're closed.
It's no problem. Your accounts are linked. You can transfer money from your cheque or your savings account to your credit card account. And presto, you're on your way. You did turn off the gas.
ANZ. Better service by all accounts.
If you think that PC stands for pretty challenging, think again. Easy PC is the unique fortnightly guide that explains the jargon and tames the technology. Word processing? Easy peasy. The internet? Easy peasy. Easy PC builds into a comprehensive guide so you'll soon be working in harmony with your PC. Easy PC. Step by step, your knowledge grows.
Need schoolwear? Think Tasmanian. Need sportswear? Think Tasmanian. Need embroidery? Think Tasmanian. Need screen printing? Think Tasmanian. Need caps or hats? Think Tasmanian. Need company or business promotional material? Think Tasmanian. Tasmanian supporting Tasmanian enterprise. The Tasmanian Clothing Company specialise in the largest range of made-to-order clothing in Tasmania. Contact the Tasmanian Clothing Company in Devonport, Launceston and Hobart.
Tonight's weather is brought to you by Country Club Casino, the only place with more games to play, more reasons to stay.
Good evening. Shannon, Scott and Michael along the Mersey River today. Not the best weather, a little bit wet and 14 degrees the top. And rain reported in the northeast and west today. Temperatures keeping above average. Top was 17 at Bicheno, Bull Bay and also in Hobart. Rain also recorded on the islands, with King Island only recording a top today of 12 degrees. Rainfall to 3 p.m. and Queenstown topped the list with 14 millimetres, Strawn not far behind with 10, 9 millimetres at Lyawini and 6 millimetres at Scottsdale and also at Erebor. The satellite shows cloud travelling with the cold fronts moving over southeastern Australia and the cold fronts right over Tasmania, which will introduce a cooler southwesterly airstream tomorrow, and the close-up highlights that cloud over the north and particularly the east of the state today. A minor flood warning is current for the Meander River Basin, a strong wind warning for all Tasmanian coastal waters and a bushwalkers alert for highland areas. And the winds tomorrow, northerly, then backing westerly tomorrow, and then later in the day, a cooler southwesterly change in the afternoon. And tomorrow's chart shows Tasmania amongst all that rough stuff tomorrow. And the forecast. Burnie and Devonport showers and 7 to 13 degrees. Coaldale on the west coast with frequent showers, a top of 11. Showers developing along the east coast and 14. Launceston a shower or two, but air quality good, 6 to 12. And for Hobart a showery day, a top of 13. On Sunday, showers mostly clearing. On Monday, a light shower in the west and south. Are mainly fine but cold on Tuesday. Becoming fine in Brisbane tomorrow, a little light rain in Sydney, a top of 16 degrees, and showers forecast for Melbourne and Adelaide. And for all those getting ready for the 40-hour famine, starting in about an hour and a half, good luck. And Kaye, back to you.
Thanks, Peter. And as you just heard, this has been my last bulletin for now. So just to fill you in, I'm relocating to Hobart with Southern Cross, so it's not exactly goodbye, as I'll still be bringing news to you from the south. I can hear my family and friends giving me a big hurrah on that one. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you very warmly for all your support and company over the years. It's been great. So on that note, from me, for now, thanks again and good night.